think a lot of people are going to look at the Kenny Golladay signing and say, great for Kenny Golladay. Fantastic. He rejected the Lions offer earlier in the offseason. He bet on himself. He got paid. The Giants paid an exorbitant price to get Kenny Golladay. Now he gets to go and be a number one wide receiver again in a different market, an easier division than the NFC North. Good for Kenny Golladay. Fantastic for him. Congratulations. A lot of people are going to be focusing on that. But I think there's a bigger winner in this signing than Kenny Golladay. And that person is Daniel Jones. And, I was thinking about this signing, and I was thinking about, wow, okay, Daniel Jones now gets a number one wide receiver to throw to for the first time since he's been a New York Giant. And obviously, Daniel Jones had a regression last season. Not all of it was his fault. The first season under Jason Garrett, new offensive coordinator, Saquon Barkley went out in week 2, and he had wide receivers that couldn't catch the damn ball, even if they were paid to do it, which they are paid to do it, which makes it that much more embarrassing that they couldn't catch a damn pass. Wide receiver couldn't catch. Evan Ingram couldn't catch a ball to save his life. Legged the league in drops at his position. Daniel Jones had a rough season. He went from 24 touchdowns and 12 interceptions in 2019 to close to and like 3,000 yards or whatever to 11 touchdowns and 10 interceptions in 2020. 2,900 yards, about that much. So there was a regression last season. And I'm thinking, okay, now Kenny Golladay is in New York. He's going to have a number one receiver to throw to. He also has now Kyle Rudolph to throw to, who hopefully is going to replace and completely eliminate Evan Ingram from the lineup. And I was just thinking back to the 2019 draft when Daniel Jones got drafted, and everybody thought it was a laughable, meme-worthy pick. Yeah, that was kind of the perception around Daniel Jones. It's like the casual football fan is like, who is this guy? I mean, they're going to know who Daniel Jones is. They're going to listen to Mel Kiper Jr.'s essay on him, his 5-minute rant on Daniel Jones, the quarterback. They're going to know his name, but unless you watched a whole bunch of Duke college football, which football isn't the sport that you're watching if you're a Duke fan. Unless you watched a whole bunch of Duke football, you wouldn't really get the potential of what Daniel Jones can be. And since he's been in the NFL, he has not really gotten a good chance to really fulfill that potential. First year, he didn't necessarily get the complete control from Eli Manning until later on. Second year, obviously, the offense was debilitated, as I said. This is the first year that Daniel Jones really gets a shot to prove that he was worth that draft selection. And as I said, everybody thought that it was a meme-worthy pick when he got drafted. It was a laughable pick. I mean, everybody that I knew that was a Giants fan was just like, oh, there's better quarterbacks available. And even me, myself, was like, oh, there's probably a better quarterback available somewhere. But once I started looking at who Daniel Jones was as a person and who he was as a quarterback, as an athlete, I somewhere along the way became emotionally invested. And I'm not a Giants fan. I will not pretend to be a Giants fan. I never will be a Giants fan. But for some reason, I am emotionally invested in Daniel Jones' success. And I don't know why. I'm not really that way with many young quarterbacks at all in the NFL. Apart from Tua Tagovailoa, Daniel Jones is the only other quarterback in which I am emotionally invested in their future. And I don't know if it's necessarily the fact that I love an underdog story. I love a story in which somebody's counted out from the moment that they are given that position. Daniel Jones has been, as far as my understanding of the perception of who Daniel Jones is, my understanding is that he's kind of been counted out as the quarterback of the New York Giants from the word go. I really want Daniel Jones to succeed. I really want him to prove people wrong, including myself. I want him to prove me wrong. I want him to be that quarterback in New York, and he does have the potential to be that quarterback in New York. He's a tremendous athlete. He's a mostly accurate passer, 75% completion rating if I recall that stat correctly. He just needs the right package behind him in order to actually be able to develop. And the signing of Kenny Golladay really gives him the best opportunity that he's had as a New York Giant to be able to live up to those expectations. And, part of it is the fact that there are those expectations. There are those unfair expectations Daniel Jones is fulfilling the shoes of one of the more likable quarterbacks of the modern era in Eli Manning. Now, Eli Manning wasn't the most outspoken person, but in terms of who he was as a person, what he was able to do in the NFL landscape, Eli Manning, especially with taking down those monstrous Patriots teams, which I'm sure a majority of the NFL appreciated, in 2011 and 2014, yada, yada. Eli Manning was one of the more likable quarterbacks in the NFL, and to see him leave the Giants the way they did, Daniel Jones was under tremendous pressure to fulfill those shoes, and it's a big shoe to fill, too. I mean, Eli Manning, debatable about whether he's going to be a Hall of Famer, but he did mean a lot to that organization. And he's a Manning. He is a Manning. And, when you actually take a look at who Daniel Jones is, he actually fills those shoes pretty well. Same type of character, more quiet than anything else. Very, very completion percentage heavy. Very get down to work type of guy. But, I mean, the only thing that's really different between Manning and him is just their completely different play styles, So I guess all of this is to say that, I think that even though Kenny Golladay is a winner in this signing, the bigger winner in all of this is, it's not even the Giants organization, although they're winner by de facto here. The biggest winner is Daniel Jones. Kenny Golladay is the best chance for Daniel Jones to prove that he is worth that draft selection, and it's the best chance that he's had since he's drafted to be able to prove that. Saquon's been injured. That's a huge part of the offense that's just taken out. When you can run the ball, that makes the quarterback's life a bajillion times easier. Daniel Jones is finally going to get an opportunity to prove that he was worth that draft selection, and I'm excited for him. I want Daniel Jones to prove everybody wrong. I want Daniel Jones to succeed. And again, I'm not really sure why I'm so emotionally invested. Maybe it's just because I love an underdog story. I love somebody who's been counted out from the word go. And again, I'm not like that with many people in the NFL at all. Obviously, it's great to have underdog stories, but when it comes to the popularity and the media presence and the media importance of being a quarterback in New York is, it's bigger than most. It's bigger than other situations. I am really, really excited to see whether Daniel Jones can live up to that hype, and I hope that he proves all of us, including myself, who kind of laughed off his draft selection in 2019. I hope he proves all of us wrong, and I hope he has a good season for the Giants, what would be a good season for the Giants? You need to make the playoffs. You need to make the playoffs. The NFC East is the worst division in the league. It's been that way for a couple seasons now. You need to get the Giants back to the playoffs. And I think the Giants have made enough moves in free agency to be able to facilitate that. They kept Leonard Williams on the defense, which was a huge move. They have the pieces to be able to make the playoffs. It really comes down to whether Joe Judge can continue to progress that football team. And it's going to, come down to basically the Giants and Washington. I think Washington is the best team in that division at the moment. I don't think Dallas is really going to be that spectacular as long as Mike McCarthy is the head coach of that football team. And then the Eagles are a dumpster fire at the moment. So, the Giants have a really good chance to make the playoffs. It's going to come down to Danny Dimes. He's got the weapons now. Hopefully, God forbid, or God willing, rather, everybody stays healthy. And again, I'm not a Giants fan. I don't know why I'm so emotionally invested in seeing the Giants succeed with Daniel Jones, but I think for the satisfaction of him proving me wrong and me saying, you know what, I should never count anybody out based on what their preconceived notion of who that person is as an athlete as a person is. Hey everyone, thank you so much for watching this segment from the Hard Headed Sports Podcast. You've heard what I've had to say. Now I'm interested to hear what you think as well. If you enjoyed this highlight from the show and want to watch more highlights from the show as they come out after the show's completion, you should definitely subscribe to the YouTube channel. And if you're interested in listening to the entire show in its full-length entirety, you should follow the show on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and Anchor. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you all very soon.